Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we are breaking down a tournament that is taking place in my home state of North Carolina, the Wells Fargo Championship taking place at Quail Hollow Golf Club. So here on today's episode, we are going to break down the course itself and tell you all the types of skill sets and types of intricate knowledge you're going to need about Quail Hollow in order to know who's going to do well this week. And then we're going to take a look at the board and identify who we want to be playing in DFS, who we want to be betting on this week, as well as who we are going to be playing in one and done. So no matter what game you are playing for the Wells Fargo Championship, we are going to have you covered and hopefully help you pick out some winners here this week at Quail Hollow. Now, I got to say, I'm generally not a fan of the PGA Tour signature event format this season. Just having 68 player fields with no cut, like it just feels a little more like exhibition. It doesn't really feel like there's a whole lot of stakes. It doesn't really feel like there's a whole lot of drama. And maybe that's due in part to the fact that Scottie Scheffler has won them all this year, but it just doesn't really feel like a full-on PGA Tour golf tournament when it's a signature event like this. So PGA Tour does have a full field event this week, the Myrtle Beach Classic. That is a place where I have played a decent bit of golf in my life. I've never played at the course, but I know a little bit about golfing at Myrtle Beach. So we are going to have an episode for the Myrtle Beach Classic that is hopefully coming out tomorrow night. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you are subscribed to the audio feed. So that way you can check out that episode and get all the information you're going to need to know for DFS and betting for the Myrtle Beach Classic if you are intrigued by a full field event on the PGA Tour this week. But either way, this is a unique event this week because we've got a signature event where Scottie Scheffler is not in the field. So somebody else might actually win this week. I'm still Scottie Scheffler is not in the field, but he still might be he still might win on Sunday. I'm not convinced that he's not going to somehow win this golf tournament, even though it does appear that he is going to be on paternity leave for this week. So, either way, we've got a little bit more of a wide open field with no Scottie Scheffler. We've got an injury update. Ludwig Oberg is withdrawn from this event. So definitely a little bit more of a wide open week. And so definitely this is a week where you're going to have to do a little bit of research. You're going to have to figure out some information that if you're going to want to end up picking the winner this week. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in and let's talk about Quail Hollow. So Quail Hollow is an interesting one for me personally because it is in my home state of North Carolina, but I would certainly consider the Wyndham more my home event than this one. I've been to the Wyndham multiple times. I've never made it up to the Wells Fargo Championship. I did attend college at UNC Charlotte, just down the road from Quail Hollow, but I never made it up there just because it seemed like they were having the event on the week or the week after I had just moved back home. And, why would I want to drive back down to Charlotte when I'm in the process of moving out or, had just moved out when, I live back in Greensboro at the time. So either way, I never made it up to this event, but I do have some friends who actually worked at this golf course back when we were all in college. So I've got a little bit of insider info. I definitely have, some tidbits that I can share, with it being an event that's somewhat local to me. So anyway, Quail Hollow Golf Club is located just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Still has a Charlotte mailing address. It is a par 71. It measures out at a little over 7,500 and can be lengthened up to about 76. This event has hosted the 2017 PGA Championship and the 2022 President's Cup, and it is also going to host the 2025 PGA Championship next year. So this is a course where in those years, the Wells Fargo Championship was not played here. In 2017, it was played at Eagle Point in Wilmington, and then 2022, it was played at TPC Potomac up in Maryland. So do not look at course history from those 2 years if you were looking at event history for the Wells Fargo Championship. Honestly, I really like Quail Hollow as a golf course. I do not like it as a major championship host, just personally. I think that they kind of take away a little bit of the integrity for the course when they had the major championship in the PGA because they really grew out the rough. They really made the greens play super firm and fast, and it just kind of made it a little bit more difficult than it should be, in my opinion. But anyway, Quail Hollow is a very long golf course. This is a big boy track. This course also features one of the toughest 3-hole stretches in all the PGA Tour, known as the Green Mile, which is holes 16, 17, and 18. It usually provides some drama on Sunday because generally these holes combine for over par every time the Wells Fargo Championship is held here. That is not something you see every day when 3 holes combine to play over par. Now, the par 3s here at this course are very difficult. 3 of them are over 200 yards with one of them, number 6, being able to extend out to about 250 yards at its maximum. The par 4s here are no slouch either. Most of them are over 450 yards. One of them, hole number 14, is drivable for long hitters. It's a downhill, like 340-ish yard par 4 that is definitely gettable if you want to attack it, but there is water on the left to provide a little bit of risk reward factor. Two of the three par 5s are going to be reachable for the entire field in 2, with the third being reachable for long hitters. The par 5s are really going to be where you're going to want to score this week. With the par 3s and 4s being so difficult, you're really going to have to gain your strokes to par on those par 5s, which is why you see a lot of the winners here, like Rory McIlroy, like Wyndham Clark, just, the elite par 5 scores on the PGA Tour. Now, this course did undergo a renovation in 2016, which made it much more difficult in preparation for that 2017 PGA Championship, which changed the scorecard from a par 72 to a par 71, and it made the green complexes much more difficult. There's a lot of character and a lot of undulation on these greens. They are bigger than average greens. They are much faster than average greens, and there is much more slope on these greens than you see usually on the PGA Tour. And so with the greens being, large, but yet also very slopey, and with the course being very long, the green regulation percentage is very low here at this course, and the green complexes make it very tough to get up and down. So with the greens regulation percentage being low and it being tough to get up and down, it just creates an environment that is generally pretty difficult for scoring. One thing I will add, this is North Carolina golf. So there are pretty much tree-lined fairways on both sides. The fairways are not super narrow, and there's a decent amount of rough in between the fairways and the trees, but everything is tree-lined. And one thing that I will say that all my friends who worked at this course said is that TV does not do it justice how much elevation change is at this course, how slopey everything is, and just how much, side hill, uphill, and downhill lies you can have, but also how many shots that are going uphill and downhill that you're going to have. It doesn't really show on TV as much as there is in person, is what they all say. Now, also, one thing they did tell me in person is that this course is incredibly expensive to be a member of, and you cannot have a beard and you cannot wear shorts if you are a member at Quail Hollow. You have to be clean shaven and you have to wear pants when you play golf. Definitely a little bit of an interesting tidbit there. But anyway, with all that being said, with the fairways being not super wide and the rough not being super penal and the course being super long, you end up with a lot of driver being pulled off the tee. So you end up with a lot of elite drivers of the golf ball who end up having a lot of success here at this course, because with its length and with its difficulty, you're going to need to be an elite driver of the golf ball to put yourself in as good a situations as possible to use your irons and hit the greens and score on all the opportunities that you're going to get to score. Honestly, what I think would be great for this course is if somebody comes in on Sunday and maybe gets some birdies or maybe even an eagle on 14 and 15 and is then, going to have to try to hold serve on 16, 17, 18. Can you make par at those last 3 holes? Because if you are tied for the lead or up by 1, it's a very difficult task on those last 3 holes in order to save par and make 3 pars and win a golf tournament. So that's really what I want to see this week. I want to see something thrilling down the stretch. Now, in terms of course history is generally pretty predictable here at this course. It's one of the, higher than average courses on the PGA Tour in terms of course history. And we have one of the all-time course horses at this course. Rory McIlroy gains an average of 0.26 strokes per round at Quail Hollow. That is more than half a stroke per round more than anyone else in the field. And it is also one of the highest total numbers for any golfer at any course on the PGA Tour. After him, the best golfers historically at Quail Hollow have been Justin Thomas, Ricky Fowler, Jason Day, Victor Hovland, Wyndham Clark, Tom Kim, Hideki Matsuyama, Seamus Power, Patrick Cantlay, and Taylor Moore, with Tommy Fleetwood just on the outside looking in. Now, in terms of the key stats here this week, I think one of the key stats this week that I'm going to be prioritizing is strokes gained off the tee. We always prioritize strokes gained approach because that's generally the most predictive stat on the PGA Tour, but off the tee is going to be important this week. You're going to have to get yourself out there and preferably in the fairway in order to have a shot at hitting a lot of these greens. So I think driving distance is going to be a factor as well. You tend to see long hitters play well here. And then I want to see proximities 175 and up. We talked about there being a lot of long approach shots into these greens. So I do want to prioritize that this week. I also want to prioritize bogey avoidance. Can you make par with whatever situation you put yourself in? You get yourself in trouble off the tee, get yourself in trouble around the green. Can you make par is the bottom line here, because there's a lot of holes on this course where you're going to be doing good just to make par, and then some that you're going to have to pounce on and get those birdies. And when it comes to putting, Bermuda grass is what I'm prioritizing. There has been much ado made recently about the courses that had the Bermuda grass overseeded with Poa Trivialis on whether or not those courses were Bermuda or were Poa. Well, I have done some research. I've spoken to some people who know agronomy. And basically what happens is a lot of courses, particularly in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Northern Florida, and even in Texas, when they're Bermuda grass greens, what they do over the winter is they overseed it with POA, because Bermuda goes dormant in the winter. And so to keep your course playable and to keep the greens rolling true, you overseed it with that POA trivialis, and it gives this kind of smooth carpety-like surface until the Bermuda is able to grow in. By the time this time of year rolls around, the Bermuda has grown in and the POA kind of just burns off, for lack of a better way of explaining it. And so here at the Wells Fargo this week, I do think I can feel pretty comfortable saying that this time of year that Poa trivialis has burnt off, and these are going to play as true Bermuda grass greens like you're going to see for a lot of the rest of the PGA Tour this season. Now, in terms of comp courses, I'm going to look at just the other long PGA Tour courses that we see on the schedule. Torrey Pines, Riviera, Bay Hill, East Lake. There's a lot of crossover success at them. Jason Day has won at Torrey Pines and Quail Hollow. Max Homa has won at Riviera, Torrey Pines, and Quail Hollow, as well as J.B. Holmes and James Hahn, who have won at Riviera and Quail Hollow. Roy has had success at Bay Hill. Rory McIlroy has had success at East Lake, and he is the king of Quail Hollow. Wyndham Clark and Xander Schauffele also played really well at Quail Hollow last year, and then coming near the top at LACC in the U.S. Open. So I think that one can be used as well. And then this course is designed by Tom Fazio. The only other two Tom Fazio designs that have been used recently on the PGA Tour are the Summit Club and Congaree, who hosted events in the fall swing back in 2021 and 2022. Ironically, both those events were won by Rory McIlroy. So Rory McIlroy seems to be the king of Tom Fazio designs, but I do think that you can look at all of those courses in terms of comp courses this week. All right, so that does it for the course preview. So let's go ahead and dive down the rabbit hole, and then let's take a look at the board. All right, so if you've been with us for a few months now, you know that when I say dive down the rabbit hole, I don't mean an actual rabbit hole. I mean the rabbit hole at BetSperts Golf. This is one of the best golf data tools that I've ever used, and I've been using it for the last few months now. It's been a huge tool in allowing me to make custom models here for all these courses that we've seen this year. It's allowed me to kind of like really filter down and narrow down some conditions and find some guys that I might not have found otherwise, because they have very unique skill sets they're going to play up at some of these courses. And so this week, we're going to take a look at the rabbit hole and build a custom model out and see who comes out near the top. I cannot recommend this tool enough, y'all. I really do enjoy it. And it's been a big part of my success this year has been being able to use this tool. It was a big part in allowing me to find Akshay Bhatia at TPC San Antonio, where I actually bet him at 65-1 and was able to find a winner. So anyway, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the last 20 rounds. So pretty much the last, 3 or so months, who are the best players in the field. The top 10 in strokes gained total are Akshay Bhatia, ironically, Hideki Matsuyama, Xander Schauffele, Billy Horschel, Alex Noren, Wyndham Clark, Siwoo Kim, Sahith Theegala, Mackenzie Hughes, and Brian Harman. I think off the tee is pretty important here. So if you make it just off the tee, that top 10 list shifts to Chris Kirk, Wyndham Clark, Hideki Matsuyama, Xander, Sahith, Austin Eckroat, Adam Scott, Stephen Yeager, Siwoo Kim, and Adam Schenk. And then if we switch it over to approach, we're back to Akshay being number 1, followed by Shane Lowry, Corey Connors, Tom Hoagie, Hideki Matsuyama, Austin Eckroat again, Lucas Glover, Will Zalatoris, Justin Thomas, and Andrew Putnam rounding out the top 10 there. Now, let's get a little bit trickier, and let's look at just off the tee. So if we look at just off the tee at courses that are driver heavy, the best golfers in the field in strokes gained off the tee at driver heavy courses are Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele, Victor Hovland, Stephen Yeager, Cameron Young, Patrick Cantlay, Ben An, Adam Scott, Corey Connors, and Max Homa. If we make it just driving distance, your top 5 in that category is Cameron Young, Rory McIlroy, Wyndham Clark, Ben An, and Patrick Rogers. Now, what I like about the rabbit hole is that I really have a lot of filters here at my disposal. And, not only is Quail Hollow a driver-heavy course, but it's also a course with a very low missed fairway penalty because the rough is not super duper thick. So if we make that missed fairway penalty low, who are the best guys in the field in strokes gained off the tee? Well, it switches to Patrick Rogers and Rory McIlroy tie for first, followed by Steven Yeager, Cameron Young, Sam Burns, Tony Finau, Wyndham Clark, Akshay Bhatia, Grayson Murray, ironically, and then Sahith Theegala rounding out that top 10. So that is just what I'm looking at off the tee here this course. So let's switch on over to approach. So in general, who is good at approach on long golf courses? Because that generally leads it to be guys who are good with their long irons, because long golf courses tend to have a lot of long irons, right? And in this field, you've got Jake Knapp, Corey Connors, Gary Woodland, Tom Hoge, Akshay Bhatia, Lucas Glover, Austin Eckrow, Siwoo Kim, Andrew Putnam, and Tony Finau. If we switch on over to all courses, though, and just look at some proximity buckets, from 175 to 200 yards, the top 5 are Cam Young, Colin Morikawa, Austin Eckrow, Adam Scott, and Eric Cole, none of whom particularly excel at the 200-plus distance, though, which has a top 5 of Xander Schauffele, Tom Hoge, Corey Connors, Tony Finau, and Keegan Bradley, with Matthew Pavone sitting there at number 6. Now, another stat that I'm going to look up pretty heavily here is bogey avoidance. And so if you narrow it down to just difficult scoring conditions, the best guys in the field at avoiding bogeys are Alex Noren, Andrew Putnam, Max Homa, Billy Horschel, and Seamus Power. If we exit out of the difficult scoring conditions, though, and just say, hey, who's good at avoiding bogeys in all formats? Well, then top 5 list switches dramatically to Kevin Tway, number 1, followed by Alex Noren, Xander Schauffele, Andrew Putnam, and Siwoo Kim. I'm seeing Andrew Putnam pop up in a lot of stats here, but there's also some stats he's not going to pop up on, like driving distance and strokes gained off the tee, right? And now, if we switch on over to par 5 scoring for birdie or better at par 5s, we've got Cam Davis, Patrick Cantlay, Matt Fitzpatrick, Kevin Tway, and Wyndham Clark as your top 5, with Xander Schauffele just sitting outside the top 5 at number 6. And then now let's talk about putting. So these are Bermuda greens, which we haven't seen in a while this year on the PGA Tour. So in the past calendar year, the best putters on Bermuda grass have been Eric Cole, Harris English, Taylor Moore, Russell Henley, Wyndham Clark, Emiliano Grillo, JT Poston, Nick Dunlap, Christian Bezadenhu, and Billy Horschel. And if we switch on over to approach putting, which is going to be big time important this week on, quite large greens that we've got here at Quail Hollow. At the top of the board is Kevin Tway, Chris Kirk, Lucas Glover, Matt Kuchar, Steven Yeager, Will Zalatoris rounding out as number 6. Ironically, Zalatoris number 6 there when he's 66th overall in strokes gained putting, I guess, because, when you true putt everything you have a lot of tap ins, that tends to lead itself to a lot of good approach putting numbers. So anyway, now, if we just look at comp courses in the last 5 years, who have been the best golfers at all of my comp courses to Quail Hollow? And that list is Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele, Will Zalatoris, Max Homa, Victor Hovland is the top 5, with Morikawa, Young, Fitzpatrick, Finau, and Cantlay rounding out the top 10. Now, I went ahead and threw all that into a model, and for the first time in a long time, Scottie Scheffler is not number 1 in the model, y'all. It's a miracle. All it took was him not playing in the tournament. So anyway, number 1 in my model ended up being Xander Schauffele. Not really a big surprise there. With Wyndham Clark 2 and Rory McIlroy 3, I think these 3, now that Ludwig has withdrawn, represent a clear big 3 in this field, and I'm not shocked to see them pop up at the top 3 in my model. Now, after that, we had a little bit of surprises. Akshay Bhatia, number 4. He's a guy I'm going to be on this week. Sahith Theegala, number 5. Cam Young, number 6. Alex Noren, 7. Yeager, 8. Finau, 9. Connors, 10. With Hideki, Hoagie, and Siwoo just on the outside looking in. The first golfer in the 6K pricing range in DraftKings is Austin Eckrow, coming in at number 16. And that is a guy that I'm probably going to be interested in this week as well. So anyway, that is just the first run of the model, my Monday run of the model. I make multiple runs at the model as the week goes by. So if you do want to know who ends up being the final top 10 in my model, subscribe to my Patreon, patreon.com/MikesMoneyPicks. At that Patreon, every single week, I'll post an article where I profile my core DFS plays, as well as the final top 10 from the model, as well as just a general strategy discussion and ownership discussion that can help you get better at playing PGA DFS. And, a lot of weeks this week when there's 2 events or when there's a live event, you're getting 2 for the price of 1, because I will be doing this for the Myrtle Beach Classic as well as the Wells Fargo Championship here this week. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then let's take a look at the board and let's see who we like this week. All right, so as we discussed in the rabbit hole segment, I do think there is a very clear big three here at this golf tournament. I think that these three guys are the three that I'm going to be starting off most or all of my DraftKings lineups with. I think that these three guys are the guys that if I were to be making an outright bet this week, I would feel the most confident in betting. But to me this week, if I'm going to be outright betting, I'm probably going to be picking one of the three guys at the top, or I'm going to be going down the board, like way down the board, to try to find a winner that's a little less obvious. What you've seen in the elevated events this season has been won by, Scotty, Hideki, and Wyndham. There's only three guys that have won elevated events. They're all guys who, are some of the best golfers in the world. So I really think that this week I'm either going to try to, if I'm picking an outright winner, pick from the top of the board or look further down the board for a little bit more of a bomb, because I think after these three guys, you've got a lot of guys who are just known for being not winners on the PGA Tour. And really, from a DraftKings perspective and FanDuel, you look at the elevated events so far this year, especially the ones that have had the limited fields. Well, I guess all the elevated events have had the limited fields. Stars and scrubs has been the predominant approach that has been successful. Now, a lot of that is due in part to the fact that Scotty Scheffler has been winning all of them. And so you put Scheffler in your lineup and you put another stud up there, and then you try to find, a few value plays to back end it with, and generally all works out. So I think that might be another path to success this week, because like I said, I think that these three guys at the top are in a class of their own. And those three guys are Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele, and Wyndham Clark. So looking at Rory McIlroy's numbers, you're not going to be super impressed with anything he's done recently. He is coming off of a win at the Zurich, where he was partnered with Shane Lowry, but we don't really have a whole lot of data from that to know how he played. But just in the calendar year 2024, Rory's shown the ability to spike with his driver, with his irons, and with his putter, which if they all happen to come on the same week, like, it's a recipe for winning. And he's won here at this course 3 separate times, almost in 3 different eras of his career, if we're being honest. So I do think that this is as good a spot as ever for Rory. And I think that he's highly likely to win it, or if not win, certainly contend this week. Xander Schauffele is second on the board. He has been probably the most consistent golfer on the PGA Tour not named Scotty Scheffler in the calendar year 2024. He just hasn't put it together for a win. He also has just no deficiencies in his game. He's just super well-rounded. He's not weak in any one aspect of it, which tends to play well at a long and difficult golf course like Quail Hollow, which, oh, by the way, the last 2 times he's played, he's finished in 14th and 2nd and has not lost strokes in any of the 4 categories in either of those 2 appearances. And then you also have Wyndham Clark, who is like Mr. Elevated Event. In the calendar year 2024, he has won an elevated event at Pebble, finished second at Bay Hill to Scotty Scheffler, finished second at the Players to Scotty Scheffler, and then third at the RBC Heritage, which, oh, by the way, was also won by Scotty Scheffler. So now that Scotty Scheffler is not in the field, might Wyndham Clark be able to win one? Absolutely, especially when you consider that he won here last year, spiking on approach, getting almost 10 strokes on the week, and almost gaining 8 strokes on the week with his putter. This is a guy who is really long off the tee, is really good with his long irons, and is really good with the putter in his hand. I could not design a better golf course for Wyndham Clark. And so I really think that all 3 of these guys are going to be super good plays this week. I think on DraftKings, you can play 2 of them in the same lineup even, but I definitely think you're going to want to be getting at least one of them in every lineup. Now, in terms of an ownership perspective, all 3 of them are going to come in pretty highly owned on DraftKings, but I don't really think that necessarily matters in an elevated event where it's a 70-person field, especially if one of the 3 of them end up winning the golf tournament. So I'm definitely not afraid to play a lot of these 3 guys here this week. Now, the 9K range on DraftKings and kind of the mid-range on the betting board, I see as being pretty even in terms of ownership distribution in DFS. I see them as being pretty even in terms of likeliness to win the golf tournament. I don't think that these are going to be guys that I would be betting on. Patrick Cantlay, he kind of found a little bit of a something the last 2 weeks. Really good ball striking week at the Masters, really solid week at the Heritage. But the Heritage is a course that he always seems to play well at, so I'm not sure if he's all the way back yet. Tom Fleetwood is a guy who is playing some really good golf, though. He was a little bit of a disappointment at the Heritage, but prior to that, his 2 starts were a T7 and a T3, and in his last 2 starts at this course, He has a 5th place finish and a 14th place finish. Max Homa is like second in course history to Rory McIlroy, in my opinion. He has a T8, a missed cut, and a win in his last 3 starts at this course. He has wins at 2 of our comp courses, which were Torrey Pines and Riviera. And to me, he fits the profile perfectly of somebody who is elite with the driver, can get hot on approach, and can get really hot with the putter. Like, he just checks a lot of boxes this week. And, he was a slight, disappointment at the Heritage, but I really think that it was because of coming off of that post-Masters hangover where he did finish tied for 3rd. And I just don't think he was ever fully locked in or fully engaged, and really punted away on Sunday for a T55 finish. So I'm not holding that against him. I think the Max Homa is probably one of my favorite plays in the 9K range this week. Victor Hovland is an interesting case study. So Victor Hovland this week, I think you can decide if you want to be early or late on Victor Hovland. If you are a Victor Hovland guy, I think this would be to play him. And the reason why is, yes, he's playing terribly, but when you look at the course of what Victor does in his career, he kind of could just pop off at any moment. And so, with him taking almost a month off, has he righted the ship? Has he figured out his game? And is he going to show it here this week? Because what I think is going to happen is, I think that very few people are going to play him here this week at Wells Fargo, and he's going to play well, and then everybody's going to be on him at the PGA Championship. If you would have asked me in December who I thought was going to win the PGA Championship at Valhalla, I would have told you Victor Hovland, but I definitely wouldn't think that right now. But he could certainly give us a lot this week here at Quail Hollow that can make us think that. In terms of his history here at this event, he's finished 3rd and 43rd in 2 tries. So if you want to try to get a little bit of a leverage play in DFS, or if you want to try to be early in the betting market on somebody, Victor Hovland is a guy that you could get on this week, and I would not shock me to see him play well. Sahith Theegala is probably out of anybody in the 9K range, the guy that I'm most likely to bet to win this tournament outright. To me, he just has a great profile for the course, right? Like, he can absolutely spike on a. He's generally a pretty good short player, and he has the ability to spike with the putter. And, you look at what he's done. He's had 2 spike putting weeks at the Players Championship at the RBC Heritage in the last 2 months. And what if he just does it again here at Wells Fargo? You also look at the event he won at the Fortinet Championship. That's another course that, while it's not long, it's not necessarily one that has a whole lot of penalty off the tee. He can be a little wild with the driver. So I do think that this could be a Sahith, kind of breakout spot, because he has been really long off the tee recently. He's been a little wild with it. So, at a course where the driving accuracy is not really a super priority, I do think that this could be a really good spot for Sahith Theegala, and it would not shock me to see him break through and get a win at a signature event here this week. Now, heading down to the 8K range on DraftKings, Hideki Matsuyama and Cam Young both have elite profiles for this course. Hideki has a win at Riviera. We don't really know exactly what he's up to. He hasn't played since the Masters, and he was playing really, really good golf before then. So if you think that he's able to kind of continue that little run, then he's a guy that you can go after. Cam Young, I think, is going to win on the PGA Tour eventually, and I think he's a guy that if you just keep betting, he's eventually going to break through and win. And, at a course like this is a bomber's paradise. I definitely think this would be, out of anywhere, this is a course that fits his game pretty darn well. Also in the 8K range, Siwoo Kim is coming in kind of as like the recent form king. Like, he's coming in red hot. He has not finished worse than 30th in an event since March. That's pretty impressive for a guy like Siwoo, and he's done it at a variety of courses in a variety of ways. And what's interesting is that, we mentioned how the President's Cup was held here back in 2022, and Siwoo was the MVP of the President's Cup on the international team that year. He was really good. Tom Kim was also great in that event. I believe they were partnered up quite a bit. And so, maybe he's able to use that to get a little bit of, history here at this course, which he doesn't have all that much of. So I do think that Siwoo Kim is in a great spot. Now, I also think that if you're looking for leverage, nobody's going to play Justin Thomas or Jordan Spieth this week. Spieth is coming in off of absolutely terrible form. He missed a cut in his hometown of Dallas at the Byron Nelson, which is a major red flag. When you take into the fact that he's played a lot of elevated events, he's only made 1 cut in his last 7 starts, which is the Valero Texas Open. The Arnold Palmer Invitational, he made the cut technically, but that was also like a top 50 out of 70 make the cut. So just not really good scenes for Jordan Spieth right now. I have no confidence playing him, but like I said, nobody's going to have any confidence playing him. So if you're an ownership guy in DraftKings, he is a guy that you can certainly go after that's going to be played at super low ownership. Alex Noren is an interesting one as well. I kind of think he's turning into like Xander Schauffele diet version, or Xander Schauffele great value version, because He's kind of gaining strokes in all categories and not really showing any kind of weaknesses or deficiencies in his game, which is something that's very indicative of Xander Schauffele. When you look at his table on data golf, it's a whole lot of green. And which is what we like to see, right? Now, at this event, he doesn't have any good history at all. He has missed the cut the 2 times he's played the Wells Fargo Championship here at this course, but he's playing some of the best golf of his career, and $8,200 on DraftKings. That's not a terrible price point for a guy like Alex Noren. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break right there, and then we're going to take a look further down the board and see if we can identify some value plays. All right, so looking down here at $8,000 and under on DraftKings, I got to say that we're looking at 3 guys that I play a lot, and that's now Will Zalatoris and Corey Connors. And the reason why is because all 3 of these guys tend to be positive off the tee players. They tend to be positive on approach players, and they tend to be some of the best long iron players in any field that they're in. They just have a habit of losing a lot of strokes with the putter. And, the problem is that with these 3 guys, they have the upside that if they finally ever do gain some strokes with the putter, they're going to be able to win an event like this, even in an elevated event or even a major championship. But they all have a game that is suited to difficult golf courses like this one because they are good with their long irons, because they are good off the tee, and because they do have the ability to, when they finally do put it together with the putter, spike enough that they end up winning the golf tournament. So Corey Connors, Will Zalatoris, and Tony Finau, all 3 going to be guys that I play a lot of. In terms of course history, Corey Connors is probably the best. He finished 8th here at this event last year, gaining strokes in all 3 categories. And like I said, it's kind of a rarity when he gains strokes with the putter. So I do think that all 3 of these guys are going to be making some of my lineups here this week. And I really do think that Zalatoris in particular is a misprice at $7,900. Now, a profile that I wanted to look at, and I'm kind of doing this live, is Adam Scott. I kind of made my mind up that I wanted to talk about Adam Scott, but I don't really remember what I wanted to talk about. So Adam Scott is a guy who has been kind of finishing in the 20s and 30s, no matter what event he's playing, no matter what course he's at, no matter what type of field he's looking at. And if you look at his statistical profile, it's kind of all over the place. But what you see with Adam Scott, this is what I think I wanted to talk about, was he's shown the ability to spike with the putter. He's shown the ability to spike on approach. He's shown the ability to strike off the tee. He just hasn't done it all in the same week yet. But why not here at this course where he has some pretty darn good finishes? He's been playing on the PGA Tour for quite a while, so he's got a lot of ancient finishes here at this course. But he finished 5th last year, gaining strokes in all 4 categories, particularly good on approach and with the putter. So I do think that this is a particularly good spot for Adam Scott, and I would have no problem going to him here this week in the mid 7K range. We also mentioned this on the rabbit hole portion, but Bati and Jaeger are going to be 2 guys that I play just a ton of. We have seen both of those 2 guys be really good long iron players, be really good approach players, and they can get hot around the green and with the putter. And Bati is a North Carolina guy, so he's got that going for him. Jaeger has a win this year at the Texas Children's Houston Open, was really good at Torrey Pines, really good at Mexico. So I do think the profile with these 2 guys is play them at long golf courses, and I do think that this is one where both of them can certainly take advantage of that. The guy that I want to talk about is Sepp Straka. So Sepp Straka has deceptively put together a resume where he's not going to show up as one of the best iron players in the field, but more often than not, when he plays, he is one of the best iron players in the field. So what I mean by that is this: 3 out of the last 5 tournaments that he's played, he's gained 5 strokes on approach with his irons. The problem is that the other 2, he's lost more than 6 strokes at the Valspar Championship and at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Well, what I would assume is when you go back and look at those, there were quite a few water balls. That's not the issue here in North Carolina at Quail Hollow. So I do think that this is a particularly good setup for him, even though last year he did miss the cut here at this event. That's not encouraging, but I do think that he's a guy that's going to go a little bit under-owned in DraftKings, and he does have the ability to spike with his irons, does have the ability to give you something and give you a pretty good spike week. Now, Adam Schenk is the next guy that I want to talk about. So Adam Schenk is traditionally a fairly well-rounded golfer as well, like we talk about with Alex Noren and with Xander Schauffele. But really at the start of 2024, he had lost his irons. They were just really bad. And he got them back. He's now gained at least 2 strokes with his irons in 4 straight starts. And he's turned it around and put together some good finishes, and even in some pretty tough fields. So I do think that this is a particularly good spot for Adam Schenk. He's pretty long off the tee. Like, this course isn't going to box him out with distance. So I do think that he's a guy that I like quite a bit here this week as well. Now, at the bottom end of the 7K range, Denny McCarthy, Tom Kim, JT Poston, they're all going to get some play from me, as well as maybe a little bit of Chris Kirk, maybe a little bit of Keegan Bradley as well. Just as guys that I'm kind of going to be throwing in my lineups and mixing and matching. This is the range where I think I kind of want a little bit different, knowing that I'm going to be playing a lot of the big three guys at the top. This kind of little lower 7K range is going to be the guys where I'm going to be, or the range where I'm trying out a few different guys. Now, in the 6K range, I'm going to do something different this week from what I've normally done. I'm going to plant my flag on 3 guys in this 6K range as my 3 guys this week. Now, before I do that, I'm going to do some honorable mentions. Brendan Todd was T8 at this event last year. He's a great putter. This is a green complexes that require good putting. And if he didn't have a terrible Sunday at the Heritage, then he probably would have had a really good finish there at that event. And he's playing some pretty good golf right now. Another one that I want to talk about was Nick Taylor at $6,200. I think he's just significantly more talented and better than his price tag. I think that he's going to be pretty darn popular on DraftKings because of how much of a misprice he is. I think what you're going to see a lot of in DraftKings is the lineups that play both Rory and Wyndham or Rory and Xander are going to click Nick Taylor at the bottom just because he's such a clear misprice at $6,200. And then Kevin Tway also at $600 coming in on really good recent form, gains a lot of strokes off the tee, is pretty good at avoiding bogeys, which is going to, play well here this week. I do think that he's fairly intriguing, and I don't think that anybody is going to play him. But the 3 guys that I'm going to plant my flag on, yeah, one of them popped up in the model. Oh, another honorable mention, Andrew Putnam. Just generally good approach player, generally good putter. I play him quite a lot. So if you were paying attention during the custom models segment, you saw this guy's name pop up quite a bit. And that is going to be Austin Eckroat. So Austin Eckroat is generally a really good long iron player. He has the ability to really have these spike weeks with his irons. And when he does put it all together, he wins the tournament like he did at the Honda Classic. What is relevant about that is that was his best putting week of the last 3 months. And that was an event that was played on grass. Now, Florida Bermuda grass is slightly different than North Carolina Bermuda grass. I can confirm I've played on both, but there's there's some subtleties, there's some uniqueness there that there's definitely like a little bit of a nice little trend in the fact that when played on Bermuda, he did putt very well. And so he should be pretty comfortable at this event. Last year, he gave it all away with the putter. He made the cut, but lost almost 8 strokes putting on the week. So if he just fixes that putter and keeps his same tee to green game that he had last year, he can certainly string together a much better finish than what he had last year. Now, next up, in the 6K range, we've got Taylor Moore. So Taylor Moore is another guy that I'm going to plant my flag on. He is generally a really good iron player, generally a really good around the green player, which are 2 skills that are going to play well this week. He also plays his best at courses where there's not a whole lot of penalty off the tee. So this is a pretty good spot for Taylor Moore. Definitely going to be deploying him as one of my 6K guys. Last year played this event, and like I said, he's generally a pretty good around the green player, but he lost almost 3 strokes around the green and still finished in 27th place. So if he's just able to bring his normal around the green play and bring the other 3 categories like he had last year, he is due for another good run here at this tournament. And then the last guy that I'm going to mention is Matthew Pavone. This is a guy that I've played a lot this year ever since that win at the Farmers Insurance Open. I wish I could say I was more on him at that event than I was, but I played him a lot for that just because I think that he's actually pretty darn talented, and he's shown the ability to spike with the irons and with the putter. And what I really like about the fact that he did it at Torrey Pines is that's a course that involves a lot of long iron play. And so if you're able to spike with your long irons at Torrey Pines, you're going to be able to spike with your long irons here at Quail Hollow. He's never played this course. We don't really have much of a sample of him putting on Bermuda, but I do think that this is a guy who has the game, who can really play well here at this course with how it's set up and what we know about the characteristics of his game. All right, so that does it for the value play. So let's go ahead and take a quick little breather, and then we're going to discuss one and done, and then we're going to. So to kind of continue with what I've said every week here, like I've had a pretty successful year in DFS. I've had a pretty successful year in outright betting, but one and done, I've been pretty crappy. I just haven't been able to find any winners in one and done here this year. And so this week will be a great week to pick one up because it's an elevated event, and more importantly, it's an elevated event without Scotty Scheffler. So there is quite literally never going to be a better opportunity for a guy like Rory McIlroy or Wyndham Clark or Xander Schauffele to win than there will be here this week. And like I said, it's an elevated event, so this is a big time purse. Now, what I think is going to happen, though, is I think you're going to see a lot of ownership concentrated around those three guys. So if you pick one of those three guys, no matter where you are in the standings, you better get it right. If you're playing from behind, I certainly understand the merits in not picking one of those three guys because there are going to be a lot of ownership that's allotted to those three. But I do think that this is a week where it's all systems go on these three guys, that they're clearly the class of the field. This is the best opportunity that they're going to have to win in a field that does not have Scotty Scheffler. So McIlroy, Clark, and Schauffele have a lot of my attention this week. I do want to call attention to, if you have Max Homa remaining, you might want to consider him, especially if you don't have all three of the big three available. Max Homa has not won at any of the courses remaining on the PGA Tour calendar after this week. We are with the California swing, which is where he usually dominates. And this is a course that he plays really well at. So if you've got Max Homa remaining and you're kind of sitting there doing the math on, what courses you've got left, what guys you got left, I do not think it would be a bad idea to bypass one of the big three and go with Max Homa here this week. Kind of a similar deal with Tommy Fleetwood. Like, there's not really any natural fits for him because he has not won on the PGA Tour, which is, he's quite famous for. But if you're looking to get a little bit different, I don't think he is a terrible way to get different. Same goes with Sahith Theegala. Same goes with Hideki and Cam Young. I don't think that those guys would be an awful place to get different from if you don't want to play one of the big three guys, Rory, Wyndham, or Xander. But like I said, I do think that is where I'm going to be concentrating my efforts this week, is with one of these big three. So looking at what I've got, I'm trying to come from behind in most of my one and dones because of how it's set up right now. So I'm going to go with Rory McIlroy, because looking at the availability and seeing that Wyndham Clark has the highest amount of availability, I think he will be the most popular. And I think that there are more courses down the road that suit Wyndham and Xander's games than Rory. The only downside is that Rory is a guy that I might definitely want to use at the Open Championship all the way in July. So I think I'm pretty safely going to go with Rory McIlroy and feel pretty confident about that. All right, so that does it for this episode, the Wells Fargo Championship 2024 preview. Thank you guys for watching this far. If you liked what you've seen here in this video, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button. If you're listening on audio, go ahead and rate and review. It really does help me out a ton when you guys do that, and I really do appreciate it. I cannot stress enough how much that helps me. But other than that, that's all we got for this episode, guys. We're going to be back later this week for the Myrtle Beach Classic. So if you are interested in that, make sure you subscribe so you can come back for that. And we're going to be with you for the rest of the PGA Tour season, including a lot of PGA Championship content coming next week. So make sure you subscribe so that way you can be around for that. I'm probably going to do a lot of smaller videos that kind of break down individual topics next week for the PGA Championship. That's kind of generally the flow that I've gotten in for majors and what I'm looking to do next week, because I'm really looking forward to Valhalla. I'm really looking forward to that event, and it should be an absolute blast to watch on TV. Cannot wait. So I'm sure you are with us for that. But other than that, y'all, that's pretty we got for this episode. So hopefully I was able to give you guys all the information that you're going to need to pick out a winner, whether you are playing DFS, whether you are betting, whether you are playing one and done. Hopefully I gave you guys what you need to pick out some winners this week. So thank you guys for watching and listening to this point. Best of luck to you this week. Have fun watching golf in my home state of North Carolina, and I will see you guys next time.